Welcome back to another AFC North update. This one just before Week 15 is upon us, or maybe by the time you're watching this, maybe Week 15 has already started by the time you get to see this video. And we have had a change in the rankings in the AFC North once again. And every team in the division is also above 500 once again. Starting with the still division leading Baltimore Ravens, 10-3 overall, 3-2 in the division. Baltimore sitting atop the AFC in general after they defeated the Rams in overtime 37-31, and the Miami Dolphins choked their game against the Titans, meaning that the Ravens have the best record and the number one seed, and if the playoffs started today, they would get the bye week in the playoffs. It was a game against the Rams where, opposite of what we're used to, it was kind of the defense that wasn't so great in this one, especially to start for the Ravens, and the offense had to keep up with the Rams, especially in that first half. The defense actually did do a good job of making sure that the drive after the interception only ended in a Rams field goal, a touchdown for Los Angeles there. Definitely could have derailed things even more, but it was a field goal that Baltimore was able to match before halftime, keeping it a 3-point game, 20-17 Rams at the end of the first half. And the Ravens defense definitely did a better job in the second half, although not so great at the end of the game when you'd really like to close that game out. But that's what the offense is there for, basically, except for when the center snaps it out of the end zone. That's not what you want to see. But overall, in general, the offense did a decent job of picking up the slack when the defense wasn't quite on point. The game would go to overtime. Defense would redeem themselves by forcing a punt, and as we've all seen, that punt returned for a walk-off touchdown by Tylan Wallace. The Ravens getting a much-needed win. I mean, they didn't need the win, but it definitely felt like a loss would have been a little concerning considering how you expect the Ravens to play. There were some injury concerns for Kyle Hamilton. He was limited in practice today, as was Roquan Smith. OBJ also limited, but for non-injury reasons, just basically for rest purposes. If you can combine the offense from last week and what the offense we've seen them capable of becoming with a defensive effort that we're more used to seeing, this Ravens team is very clearly one of the most dangerous in the AFC. That's why they have that 10-3 record. That's why they're at the ranking spot that they're at. But it has just been a little bit of an issue of getting both to click at the same time for an entire 60 minutes. And they're going to have to get a little better at that late in this regular season, as the schedule does not get any easier from here for Baltimore, at least anytime soon. This week they play the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday Night Football, who will be hoping to rebound from a loss to the now second place Cleveland Browns, 8-5 overall, 3-2 in the division. I mean, who would have thought that Joe Flacco would be a feel-good story in 2023 for any team, let alone the Cleveland Browns, becoming the first quarterback to throw for over 300 yards for the Browns this season. Also earned his 100th career win in that victory over the Jaguars in Cleveland by the final score of 31-27. The Browns defense, they just play different at home. I think there was another really solid performance on the defensive side of the ball for the Browns. I know they gave up 4 touchdowns, but 2 of those 4 touchdowns were off of short fields after turnovers, and the third one, you could say, was, the late sequences of the game. The Browns defense definitely backing off a little bit. You could call it garbage time, considering that the Jaguars had to rely on getting an onside kick that the Browns recovered in order to have any hope for a comeback attempt. Flacco did find some fireworks early with David Njoku for a couple of touchdowns. Kareem Hunt continuing to find the end zone in more weeks than he doesn't, as the Browns go with a bit of a running back by committee with Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, and Pierre Strong Jr. Trevor Lawrence throwing 3 picks, 2 to MJ Emerson and the other one to Greg Newsome. The secondary could get some more firepower back with Denzel Ward and Juan Thornhill. Both of those were missing in the Jacksonville game, but there have still been a slew of injuries piled on as of late. Grant Delpit, who had a tremendous game against Jacksonville when he was in and was just recently signed to a 3-year extension, he's out for the year. So is Maurice Hurst, and Agbo Okoronkwo could be out for the year as well. We also realize that Jed Wills and DeJuan Jones, both of them out against Jacksonville, they will also be having their seasons ended as well. So look, I know that there's no sympathy and it's next man up in the NFL, but the injuries for Cleveland have been a little ridiculous this year. They'll hope to keep up the home momentum going against Chicago on Sunday. Then you get to the now third place Pittsburgh Steelers, 7-6 overall, 3-1 in the division. Man, what is going on with the Steelers recently? Last we saw them, they were finishing up a 21-18 loss to the then 2-win Patriots. That was right after losing to the then 2-win Arizona Cardinals as well. And yes, they were down Kenny Pickett and using their backup quarterback, and they were a little bit banged up on especially on the defense, but most of the division doesn't have their starting quarterback right now, and it's the New England Patriots. They absolutely suck this year with Bailey Zappi in there. Trubisky gave them very little hope, and I think Trubisky gives them very little hope moving forward for however long Kenny Pickett misses time. I honestly think Mason Rudolph has a higher ceiling at this point. Mason Rudolph will probably still be awful, but I feel like he has a better chance of injecting some life into this offense than Mitch Trubisky does. We've seen what Trubisky is at this point, and it's just not acceptable for what the Steelers are trying to do this season. Kenny Pickett did not practice today. Neither did Deontay Johnson, so theoretically, your best quarterback and wide receiver not practicing, not a good sign so far. Although TJ Watt on the defensive side of the ball, he has been cleared from a concussion by an independent neurologist. So it seemed like he had suffered one during the Patriots game that was just kind of let go. He came back with some kind of visor that he usually doesn't wear, and he got kneed right in the face. So it seemed like something might have happened there, but who knows? Highsmith and Elandon Roberts were eliminated in practice in this one. Cam Hayward was a full go, and so was Najee Harris. So there are some reasons for a little bit of hope, but it does feel like a team that's a bit on the brink of a collapse with their recent results. And I know that the Steeler fan base is always a bit rowdy when it comes to having high expectations for their teams, but it does feel like their angst against the team and its coaching staff is about as high as it's been in certainly quite a long while. So they're going to have to turn it around, and turn it around fast if they want to give their fans something to hope for late in this regular season, and they'll hope to do so against the Colts in the late afternoon on Saturday. The Colts last week played the still fourth place Bengals, but there's a caveat to that fourth place. They're now 7-6 overall, 0-4 in the division, still at the bottom, but perhaps more hopeful than they've ever been after a 34-14 win over Indianapolis. Jake Browning had another dynamic game. Yes, he did have that pick six that tied the game at 14, but the defense clamped up after that, and Jake Browning was able to just shrug that off and keep the offense humming while being in there. They are tied in the record with the final wildcard spot, and obviously in the final division with having the same record as Pittsburgh. But the tiebreakers not being so friendly to Cincinnati right now. They're ranked, the rankings 6 through 11 in the AFC wildcard race are all sitting at a 7-6 record. The Bengals are 10th. But I would say Cincinnati basically controls their own destiny, and they do have a game against Pittsburgh coming up. And honestly, after their first game against the Steelers, I thought they would be gearing up for tanking and a better draft pick, but that overtime win against Jacksonville and this dominant win over the Colts have seen their playoff hopes kind of rise from its coffin like the Undertaker, and they're trying to stake their claim in a spot. They certainly have a lot of momentum than some other teams like the Bills or the Steelers, or you can say the Colts. The Colts occupy that 7th wildcard spot right now, but I do feel like a lot of the Bengals' hope does ride on Jake Browning being able to replicate what he's done in the past 2 games and not turn into a pumpkin, kind of like what we saw with Josh Dobbs up in Minnesota. I will give credit to Zach Taylor. He's clearly been able to hold the team together with Burrow missing some time. He's still prone to some silly stuff like whatever that double pass call against the Jaguars was, where it looked like he was trying to intentionally start the tank for this year. But if Zach Taylor can coach this team to the playoffs this year with everything that Cincy has had go wrong this season, it would go a long way to keeping his spot a safe one. I talked about Joshua Dobbs and the Vikings. The Bengals actually take on the Vikings early Saturday afternoon. They're on one of the least impressive 2-game winning streaks I've ever seen. Last week they had a 3-0 victory over Oakland. We'll see if Nick Mullins at quarterback kind of sparks the Vikings offense, but with Cincinnati's defense actually being a bit better than I expected them to be, they've actually been the more solid of the 2 units consistently. I don't have super high hopes for Nick Mullins, even with some of those Vikings receivers. But that's going to do it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. If you did make it this far into it, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you'd like to see more like it. I do these AFC North updates about once every week. I'll also cover teams from Ohio, maybe like those videos as well. You can let me know in the comments what you thought about some of the AFC North action this past week. But once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you at the next one.